Hello everyone, this is the Biz and you're back with another video, and the 500 point mode just released in Pokemon Unite, which is pretty dang exciting. There are so many things involved and revolving around this game mode. So today I thought I'd make a video talking about all of the different types of Aeos technology that are available. We'll be going through each of them. I'll talk about some of my favorites. You can find out which ones are available, by the way, by clicking this, and then you go right here. And there you go, you have a list of all the different types of Aeos technology. I'll talk about which ones I think are the best, some potential team synergies or Aeos technology synergies that may be possible, and yeah, just talking about them. So these are the ones that you get at the start of battle. You will get 3 available to you. You won't get all 6 of these. It'll be 3 random ones available to you. So Goal Leveler is an option that you can get. It's level up immediately and whenever you score. This is pretty decent, but it's on a 60-second cooldown. You won't be able to get this too often. It could be good to get early stacks in, like if you're stacking someone, maybe you get that early goal, you get some early levels, it might help a bit. I'm not saying it's the best thing in the world, but it's decent. It's not the worst thing in the world, and it's fairly okay. The 60-second cooldown is kind of a long time, so not the greatest thing, but if you don't have other things that work for you, then that's fine. Speedy KOs, that is the next one. Basic attacks instantly KO wild Pokemon, granting 100% EXP points. 45-second cooldown, this is good for evolving quickly. Could be decent, again, I don't think it's my favorite thing. 45 seconds is at least better than 60 seconds, so I think there is more usage in this and you'll get more out of using this compared to Goal Leveler. At least in most cases. I also think Goal Leveler won't help as much later in the game, so Speedy KOs is something that you will get some use out of throughout the game. KO Leveler. Level up immediately and whenever you defeat an opposing Pokemon. So this is on a 30-second cooldown. This is very strong. Good for attackers, and this can very much snowball games. Like if you are jungling, this could be great. There is something else that's specifically good for junglers, so we'll talk about that in a second, but this is good for attackers. This can definitely snowball games. If you're a speedster, this could be great. This is a scary one. If you are a person that tends to get a lot of KOs in games, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. But I did mention there's something specifically for junglers, and that is solo EXP points level up. This is very strong. Plus 60% EXP points for defeating wild Pokemon solo. It says here also good for central area. Completely true. I went through central area earlier. If you don't have any of these buffs with you, you will you'll leave the central area with around level 5.5 or like 5.25 or so. If you have the solo EXP points level up, you'll get 60% EXP points, and you'll end up leaving the jungle at around level 6.5. Maybe a little bit higher, but around 6.5. So that is quite a bit of experience, and you will continue getting this. I mean, if you could do your second rotation, like third rotation, like you'll keep going through the game and you get so much EXP points, so much Aeos energy, and you will definitely outlevel opponents very, very well. So very strong one if you're in jungle. If you are jungling, this is almost a must pick. Now, speaking of must picks, if you're a defender or supporter, passive EXP points level up. Plus 100% passive EXP points or plus 200% of the lowest level on team. This is literally like built-in EXP share, but it's specifically for yourself, and it is kind of crazy. So very strong. And speaking of EXP share, shared growth plus 50% EXP points for defeating wild Pokemon with an ally. This is very strong. Highly do recommend this for defenders and supporters. Both of these are very, very strong. It's your pick at the end of the day. None of these are bad. In fact, in general, none of these are bad, but some of these work well with others, and I'll explain what I mean by that throughout this video. So here we go. Energy Thief. This is selectable at 50 points. Energy Thief is pretty dang solid, I think. Basic attacks steal 20% of opponent's Aeos energy, and this is on a 10-second cooldown. So when you're in a game mode, 500 point mode, where you're trying to score as many points, well, you're trying to score 500 points, having things like the Energy Thief ability is very strong because you're limiting the amount of Aeos energy that the opponents will have. So definitely do like this ability quite a bit. I think it's quite strong. Full Energy. Immediately max out held Aeos energy. So this is an interesting one. This can be good, but I think there are certain ways you can make this even better. Because as soon as you have the ability to select your Aeos technology, you don't have to click it immediately. You can wait a bit, you can wait for the perfect time to click this. And I think Full Energy is one of those types of situations. Let's say you've KO'd the opponents on their base. You've KO'd them all, you score your points, let's say you had like 15 Aeos energy, I don't know, you score your points at whatever you have. There's no one on the goal because you KO'd the opponents, right? At this point, you click your full energy. You're at full energy, you have 30 Aeos energy, you score that immediately, there's no one to defend it, and now you've scored not only what you had before, but you've scored this new full energy, Aeos energy, and there you go. You've put yourself at a higher level, you've put your team further ahead. There are ways that you can use these different types of Aeos energy strategically to maximize their output and effectiveness, and that's just one example. So I don't think full energy is very good all the time. I think it is very, very situational, and if you are kind of steamrolling opponents, if your jungler ganks your lane and the opponents are KO'd, full energy, pop it off at that time, score as much as you can, make the most out of it so you can quickly get to 100, because there are some really good things at 100 team points. But before we get to that, we'll go to Aeos Energy Aid. Wild Pokemon drop plus 0% Aeos Energy if you have none. This is obviously a typo, it's not plus 0%. Hey, this is Bison from the future, figured out how this works. Basically, if you KO a wild Pokemon that's worth 1 Aeos Energy, you'll get 5 instead. And this only works if you have no Aeos Energy on you. So if you KO a Swablu that normally gives 1 Aeos Energy, you'll get 5 instead. If you KO something that normally gives 2 Aeos Energy, you'll get 10. And this continues to scale upwards. So this can be effective if you're a Pokemon that likes to invade, like you can steal farm from the opponents, and instead of getting 1, you'll get 5 Aeos energy. You can use this to try and score on their goals, and putting a lot of goal pressure and a lot of pressure in terms of points, because you're getting so many more points than what you should be getting. And this is, I think, good for Pokemon that like to invade, like Sableye, maybe Dodrio. This can be good for Pokemon that like to stack. In general, this is a decent item, or a decent power-up. It depends on the Pokemon that you're playing, but it can be very effective. Energy Magnet, collect Aeos energy from farther away and plus 100% more off of the ground. Good for speedsters and supporters. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's decent for speedsters and supporters. I don't think this is, again, the greatest thing. You're kind of denying it from opponents potentially, so it's okay. There are definitely better ones in my opinion. Aeos Energy up, plus 100% Aeos Energy for defeating wild Pokemon. Again, this just allows you to have more Aeos Energy, which you can score, which is great because that's the whole point of the game mode. It's not bad, it's decent, could be good. Energy Generator, plus 2 Aeos Energy every 10 seconds, or plus 4 for every 10 seconds if you have less than 20. So it says good for defenders and supporters, sure, could be good for them, could be okay if you're stacking. I don't know if this is necessarily the best, but it's something decent. And if you are a Pokemon like Zacian, right, if you're a Pokemon that requires Aeos Energy, this is kind of good. Zacian or other Pokemon that use Aeos Energy for their abilities will definitely appreciate this. Energy Refill. Score within 30 seconds of KOing an opponent to regain the scored Aeos energy. So it says allows consecutive scoring. This is kind of, again, situational. If you are very aggressive and you are able to KO opponents like this after scoring, this could be strong. It can allow you to get stacks in more quickly. I mean, I love playing Lucario, so I'm a bit biased. I think this could be pretty solid for a Pokemon like Lucario, for Machamp, those types of Pokemon. Not necessarily the best, but it's pretty decent, especially at, what is it, 50 team points? It's not bad at all. And then Energy Insurance. This is one of the strongest things in my opinion. Lose no Aeos energy when knocked out. This is good for active battlers, this is good for all battlers. Why is this the case? Well, if you get KO'd, you're gonna drop Aeos energy, and if you drop Aeos energy, the opponents can pick it up. They can take it and score it. If you have this, they can no longer take that Aeos energy you dropped, and not only that, you will have that Aeos energy that you had earlier. So this is very, very, very strong in my opinion. One of the best at level 50, because you're denying the opponents from getting your Aeos energy, which is very, very strong. So I think Energy Thief, Energy Insurance, and maybe Energy Refill could be good. Energy Generator depends on the Pokemon. Full Energy could be good, it's very situational, but in those situations, it can definitely allow your team to get a huge early game lead. So don't sleep on Full Energy. Now 100 points, there are some incredible ones in the 100 point category. So we'll go through them here. Map Sprinter, move 40% faster when leaving combat. Good for speedsters and supporters. Faster move speed can come in clutch at all times. If you're playing as Clefable, let's say, and you're using Moonlight, you can run to your allies faster, try and heal your team better. Or speedsters too, by the way, like Talonflame. Oh boy, especially with the Flame Charge buff. Or using Fly, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that. But using Fly with Map Sprinter, and then like using it, I mean it says for when leaving combat, right? But you can also use it to engage into new fights. Huh, I didn't even think of that. That's disgusting. Okay. Something great to keep in mind. So that's pretty good. But what's probably one of the best things here is Hindrance Canceller. Hindrance Canceller, lose all hindrances every 10 seconds and become unstoppable for 1 second. It says good for attackers and speedsters. I'd say this is good for almost every Pokemon in the game, and there is so much CC in this game. Hindrance Canceller is crazy. You will have to time it, of course. It's every 10 seconds and unstoppable for 1 second. So you do have to time it, you do have to keep a cooldown in mind for how often this is proccing. In general, this is very strong. Goalkeeper, shield effects in ally zones are 50% stronger. Good for defenders and supporters, I completely agree. If you're an attacker or a speedster, probably don't get this. But if you're a defender or supporter, this can be pretty useful. So, not the greatest thing, but for defenders and supporters like Snorlax or any defender or supporter, that's fantastic. Cooldown Cooler, another very, very strong one in my opinion. Move cooldowns are minus 10%. Each time you score, it's minus 5% more, and it maxes out at 25%. This is good for attackers. This is good for stackers. If you are stacking, this is insane. Oh my goodness, 25% lowered cooldown? That is crazy. That is actually one of the craziest things. Highly do recommend Move Cooldown, or Cooldown Cooler. Battle Item Stock. Stock 2 battle item uses. This can be broken in some cases, like 2 eject buttons. I mean, the outplay potential is insane. 2 full heal uses. The ability to avoid CC. Very, very strong. You love to see that. Or you could use other items too, but those are definitely the major ones that come to mind. Extended auras. Auras from defeating wild Pokemon last longer and aren't lost when knocked out. So this is good for central area, as it says. I don't think this is necessarily the best thing, because I mean, sure, if you get KO'd, then you won't be giving buffs to the opponents, which is great. But if you are a good jungler, in most cases you shouldn't be getting KO'd. Sure, the buffs will last longer too, but I don't think this is necessarily the best type of thing to get. It's kind of more of a defensive play, when in reality you shouldn't be getting KO'd as a jungler. Battle Recovery, 100% of max HP restored for defeating wild Pokemon. It says good for attackers. I agree in some cases, but also if you have a good team comp, if you have a supporter with you that's healing you, or if you have Umbreon that's healing you, you don't need this. I mean, if you don't have any healing on your team, then sure, you could go for this, but if you have healing, this seems a little redundant. It could keep you alive longer in team fights, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's necessarily the best thing. And it's also only for defeating wild Pokemon, it's not off of opponents, so it's kind of limited in its usage. Could be good, but I'd have to test it out more to really see how effective it is. True Sight. This is another pretty solid one. Field of Vision widens, and stealth opponents are visible every 10 seconds. I mean, having vision in this game is so powerful, so incredibly powerful. So True Sight, pretty solid option. And stealth opponents, if opponents are in wild grass, they are going to be visible every 10 seconds. Very powerful, so I do think True Sight is one of the better Aeos Technology options available. Again, almost everything on 100 points is pretty good. Energy Shield. I haven't tested this too much, but for every 1 Aeos energy you collect, you gain a shield of 1% max HP, maxes at 35%. I played with it a bit, but I haven't tested it enough to see how effective this is. But you have an extra shield, and it increases for each Aeos energy you get, so could be good. And finally, we have Energy Clash, plus 25% damage to opponents that have less energy than you. This is a very, very interesting one. If you're a stacking Pokemon, you probably should never use this. If you are a jungler, then this could be pretty useful. If you're jungling, it's sometimes tough to score. At least in my opinion, it can be tough to score if you're playing Cinderace in jungle, or Gengar, like any speedster, in the jungle. It can be tough to score, Greninja. Doesn't mean you're never going to, but you could go for the option of trying to not score too often, trying to always have a high amount of Aeos energy. And if you have more Aeos energy than the opponents, even if you have 1 more Aeos energy than the opponents, 25% more damage will be dealt to the opponents. That is quite a bit. And also, keep in mind, the very cool thing about all of this is that you can pair these different Aeos technologies together, right? So, for example, if you have energy insurance, right? Lose no Aeos energy when you're knocked out. This is kind of good. But if you pair that with this, and you always have, like you pair the energy insurance with Energy Clash, you're never going to lose Aeos energy, and you can always make sure you have the max amount of Aeos energy. Now sure, the opponents could also have the max amount, but if you have more Aeos energy than them, you're going to always be dealing 25% more damage to the opponents. That's just flat 25%, so that's pretty dang powerful. If you use these in combination well and effectively, my goodness, these Aeos technologies can go out of control. So just something to keep in mind. I could maybe make a video talking about more combinations that are effective, but we'll see. In the meantime, we'll just continue going down the list. We have 200 points. We have Insta Score. Score the next goal instantly. Like it says, a chance to turn the tide. This is instant gratification. It could be good, and it could be very big, especially if you have like 50 Aeos energy. You just score. Your team is now even closer, like much closer to winning. So could be useful. Really situational at the end of the day. And it's also similar to the full energy, right? You can use it when you've KO'd opponents, and then you just make sure you're able to score the next goal instantly. It's strong. Self-explanatory. Goal posted while scoring, take 25% less damage, and attacks don't interrupt. So kind of like Rayquaza Shield in a sense. Next up, we have Speedy Scorer. Score 100% faster. Good if you can't decide. I mean, that's completely true. This is just good no matter what, right? You score faster, 100% faster. Energy capacity. Hold up to 100% more Aeos energy. This is a very interesting thing. I don't know why it says good for speedsters, but sure. I think this is good for anyone, potentially. And something to keep in mind. So how this works, basically, if you're level 12, you can hold, I think, up to 50 Aeos energy. But with energy capacity, at level 12, you will hold up to 100 Aeos energy at once, which is crazy. And you're not going to score slowly, by the way. You're going to be scoring the 100 Aeos energy at the same speed as you're scoring 50 Aeos energy. I tested this earlier. It seems to be the same speed. So this is potentially very powerful. Will you be able to do this often? Probably not. But if you have good teammates around you, if you have defenders who are trying to push off opponents, make sure you have enough room to score. This is very effective. This can completely change the course of the game. So I do think that's a good option. I think all of these are pretty good options, but that's also pretty good. And finally, double points. Score double points with the next goal. This again can be kind of like instant gratification, but it's also very useful, right? Like you don't need to have 50 Aeos energy and score 100. Like if you have 25 Aeos energy, you score, that's 50 points. And 50 points is a lot when the total is 500, right? That's 10% of the points that you need to win the game. Double points, also a great option. All of these pretty dang solid. And finally, we have the 350 points. Let's go through them. First, we have emergency recovery, recover HP when low. This is from the future again. I hadn't actually tested the emergency revival prior to recording this, so now that I have tested this, I completely underestimated how strong this was. Basically how it works, if you're on low HP, you will be brought back to half of your maximum HP instantly, which is crazy strong. I mean, you basically have a built-in Ho-Oh revival. Sure, it's not a revival, but it's as strong as that. And imagine pairing this with an actual Ho-Oh revive. Like, holy, you'll just not be getting KO'd. You just won't get KO'd. It's so strong, it's so effective. I'm not saying you can depend on this though, because it is a 60-second cooldown, so that is a very long cooldown. But if you're able to use this effectively, it can completely change a team fight, change the course of a team fight. I think this is also specifically very helpful when your team is not working well together. If you have a team that's kind of a bit confused, they're not working together very cohesively, this can allow you to clutch up and win some major team fights. So I do think this is a very, very solid choice. One of the more interesting ones though, in my opinion, Turbo Unite Move. Unite Move instantly charges by 50% and can charge 100% extra. I don't know what 100% extra means, but holy, Turbo charging the Unite Move sounds insane. I mean, Pikachu Unite Move, right? If you have Energy Amp, that's crazy. You just use it, you're gonna be at 50%, you will use it again pretty soon after, your cooldown is gonna be so low. Or if you're using it on Pokemon that have higher cooldowns potentially, like Blastoise. Blastoise has a great Unite move, and then it's back to 50%, Machamp Unite move, any Unite move honestly, 50% cooldown right after using it is crazy. So Turbo Unite move, one of the better options in my opinion. Full power boost is deal plus 50% damage when HP is over 90%. This is a bit tough, right? If your HP is over 90%, 90% is a lot. If you have a supporter trying to keep you alive, this could be great. If you're playing as like the Decidueye or something, can you imagine the Snipes dealing 50% more damage? I mean, if you're at range and you're using your range effectively, staying at over 90% HP is not the hardest thing in the world, but it's not always going to be possible, especially in team fights. But if you have, I mean, if you're with a duo, if you're playing with another person who's supporting you, if you have a Comfey, oh my gosh, if you have a Comfey on you, that's gonna be so disgusting. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, if you have a Comfey on you, you can definitely make use of this and completely ruin everyone. Oh boy, I didn't think of that. I'm not a fan of that one. Not a fan because it sounds kind of strong, but 90% is a lot, so it's not going to happen too often. I mean, if you have the ability to do it, if you have a good team comp and you think you can pull it off, it could be very powerful. Another option though that I think is potentially even more powerful is damage reduction. Now I don't think this is good on all Pokemon, but you take minus 10% damage plus minus 5% for each nearby opponent. Now I don't know what nearby necessarily means in this context. If it needs to, there's probably like a certain range. MathCord is probably going to determine what it is, or maybe it already has been determined. I don't know the exact range of what nearby opponents means, but it says good for defenders. I do agree, it's good for defenders, good for supporters, but it's also good for Pokemon like a certain brawlers, like Venusaur, specifically Giga Drain Petal Dance Venusaur. That is going to be so strong for Venusaur. It's going to be almost unkillable, maybe not unkillable, but it's going to be very, very effective. Another Pokemon like Fire Spin Armarouge, that's going to absolutely love this. I think quite a few all-rounders will honestly like this too, especially all-rounders that use like Weakness Policy, because there are some items like Weakness Policy that I think can pair well with certain Aeos technologies that are available. Another, I guess the final one available here is the HP Recovery Field. You and a nearby ally with the lowest HP recover 4% of your HP. So this is good for defenders, good for supporters, good for anyone really. I think many of these options are solid. Turbo Unite move, really good. Damage reduction, really, really good. HP recovery, it's a safe option no matter what. Let me know what you thought. There are so many things in this 500 point mode. So many things that I want to talk about, so many things that are so cool in this. And let me know what strategies have been working for you, what Aeos technologies you find the most useful. If this was helpful at all, then that's awesome. Subscribing is awesome as well. Thank you all for watching, and I will be there in the next video. Cheers.